I'm going to read from your article. It's why a school like Florida State will force this issue and try to create as much leverage as possible. Why the Noles know they have no choice but to push and fight for every dollar they can. Why I believe and am completely confident in this, that Florida State would even go it alone if it had to. That if nothing changed with the ACC and other schools backed out, the Seminoles could write a check for a $120 million exit fee and wage the legal battle over the grant of rights and see what they could get on the open market. That's weighty, Ira.
You could say I buried the lead. I should have had that in the first 2-3 paragraphs.
It was the paragraph that made me stand up and say, hot damn!
Well, all right, here's the situation. They know two things, okay? Number one, Florida State and Clemson need these other schools to realize how serious they are. And so I think you could make a case that what they're doing right now and some of these kind of expressing their concerns and letting everybody know how far they would go, I think you could say, okay, they're making the ACC schools and ESPN understand you've got to come to the table. Because right now they're not. When Michael Alford pushes for them to do uneven revenue sharing with a TV contract, it goes nowhere. Those other schools are not going to negotiate on that. So here's, again, people I'm talking to are telling me, look, we will go to whatever lengths we have to. And here's the thing, like, staying put is not an option. So does Florida State want to spend $120 million to get out of this contract and deal with whatever the legal repercussions are? No, but they can't sit here and just wallow in this till 2036. So again, will Florida State actually do that if they had to? I'm sure they don't want to. Would they actually do it? They got to make that financial decision. What I don't know, and none of us know, and you talked about like the tenor of the meetings and all that, none of us know exactly how strong the grant of rights really is. And that's what they're sending those attorneys there to do by looking at that and the media contract. And so I just find it interesting. This is the thing I brought up before, but what I find interesting about all this is for years and years, I mean, literally years, we have been told the grant of rights is ironclad. There's nothing you can do about it. If you listen to people now who are reporting and covering ESPN side or the ACC side or some of those other school side, that's not what they say anymore. What they say now is, hey, it would be really expensive and it would be a really drawn out legal process. Well, those are two totally different things. And so if it's ironclad, it's ironclad. If it's not, then it's not. And now it becomes a financial decision. But again, I think from people I talk to, Florida State, the idea of sitting in this conference till 2036 or anywhere close to that, making $30 or $40 million less than those other schools they have to compete with, it's just not happening. So I don't know how successful they'll be, but I know that they're not content to just ride it out and hope things get better.
What would a time frame look like in your estimation, based on what you've learned in talking to your sources, regarding Florida State deciding that's it, that's all, we've exhausted everything we could, this isn't going to work, now's the time to pull the trigger and take the chance and ride?
I think they'd love to get, again, all 8 schools, at least 8 schools on board and dissolve it. And I think that however long that takes, but if that's not going to happen, man, it's going to be sooner than later. I just don't think that they're going to, this is going to be, we've talked in the past about, maybe you wait 3 years, maybe you wait 5 years, maybe, and get those numbers down to whatever. I don't think that's the case, man. I mean, I don't know details of how they can do it or when they can do it, but I don't think it's going to be long. And again, I don't know if that's months, weeks, days. I don't know. I just know it's not going to be long. They're not going to just sit and wait and hope for things to get better.
Can 8 teams dissolve the league?
My understanding is, yeah, man. That's and again, I don't know the mechanics of it, but my understanding is 8 schools could make the decision to basically put everything into effect. So I believe it is. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is if they get 8 schools on board and all 8 schools are ready to ride, not just say, hey, we're with you, but actually ready to ride. Yeah, that's what they need.
So what's happening now then, if that is the case, one would think, is folks are scrambling to find a place to land because not everybody can go to the SEC or the Big Ten. In fact, if we get up to 9, 10 teams, you would end up saying probably the majority of the teams that are willing to leave at that point and put their name to it and actually decide to walk are not going to the Big Ten or the SEC. They're trying to find a place that's better than the ACC, which right about now is everywhere. But that said, right, you would need, and then the politics get involved, because we remember the last expansion. Remember all this, how this went down before? Hey, Virginia Tech has to have a place to go, and Virginia's going to protect them. And in the state of North Carolina, you may not think much of NC State, but they're in tandem with North Carolina, and they won't leave without each other. And we did this before. So the machinations, the politics, all of that is what's happening right now behind the scenes so that people have a landing spot, right?
Yeah, potentially. But also, again, I don't think they've taken the idea off the table that maybe 8 teams go or 9 teams go and they pick up 2 or 3 other teams. They start their own conference or merge with another conference. I don't, again, there's nothing. My perception is nothing's off the table. The only thing that's off the table is sitting in this league till 2036, making way less money than everybody else. And when you talk about politics, man, there's politics in Florida. There are people in the with power in the state of Florida who don't want to see Florida State become an afterthought in college athletics. So I think there are people that would help Florida State if it came to it. So yeah, man, there's a lot of things at play here. Again, I just say, if I had to put my money on Vegas on what's the most likely scenario or the least likely scenario, to me, the least likely scenario is Florida State sitting in the ACC and rubbing pennies together while Florida's sitting over there with $400 million in the bank because of their contract with the SEC.
Florida State would announce they can't make the game Saturday. They have to give plasma. We're just not going to be able to do it, guys.